Leaving Makogai, we set out on a series of day-long passages, stopping to see the sights and rest along the way. Our goal was to reach the Yasawa Islands at the far western edge of Fiji. Pretty nice sailing.
Sure is.
This area is called the Bligh Waters, as Captain Bligh passed through here in his lifeboat after being set adrift during the mutiny on the Bounty. After crossing from Polynesia, he navigated through these reef-strewn waters in the overcrowded boat. The journey ended up being more than 3,600 nautical miles, a feat of extreme seamanship and survival in an open boat. This is the leeward side of the island, and the climate is noticeably drier. We had been in remote areas for weeks, and we were running very low on fresh food and water. Compounding the problem, our huge supply of dry and canned goods from Mexico was finally starting to run out as well. There isn't a convenient town near the water in this area, so we called a cab to drive us inland for some supplies.
have almost everything on our list. We just need onions, garlic, and potatoes.
I got onions. They're right there.
Perfect.
So we went to the market today and came home with tons of fresh vegetables and fruit. I have been washing everything in a bleach water solution to kill all of the mold spores and bacteria, and to just look everything over for pests as well before we bring it on board. It definitely extends the life of everything, and it lasts pretty well considering how warm it's been here in the tropics. We have very limited refrigeration here on board, so we mostly reserve that for our cheeses and dairy items and meats.
A downpour gave us some much needed fresh water as well. It was a pretty hard rainstorm. Just about sunk the dinghy. We got 10 gallons of fresh drinking water just off of this sunshade. That's not enough water to last very long, but with no source nearby, we decided to push on to the Yasawas, catching more rainwater when possible. With a very early start, we hoped to make the 55-mile crossing in light winds, while arriving with the sun still high enough for good visibility of the reefs.
I don't recall the last time you wore a plaid.
Yeah, it's been a long time. This bay is home to the famous sea cave depicted in the classic movie Blue Lagoon. Swimming through an underwater tunnel leads to a series of chambers in complete darkness.
What have we got on the menu?
Chicken on the grill tonight. Getting there. Some of the last of the Coronas from Mexico. They're getting pretty old. The Yasawa and Mamanuka Islands form a long chain, and we set out to explore many beautiful anchorages as we worked our way to the south. There we go. $1, $2, $2. Tanaka!
Very narrow channel here.
The tide rushes through this narrow gap between islands, creating the conditions for a spectacular coral reef. The Octopus Resort on Waya Island is very friendly to cruisers, and we got to enjoy the resort life for just the cost of a few cocktails.
Got a good sailing breeze. Seems like there's breakers on all sides of us today. Reefs everywhere.
These are the last of the Yasawa Islands. We're gonna sail past them today, and the next group of islands you can just see in the distance are the Mamanukas. That's where we're headed this afternoon. We arrived in Yanuna and were given a tour of the village. The school kids were having a big rugby tournament that day. Good, 1, 2, 3.
Nice to meet you all.
So we totally forgot how hard it rained last night, and we started towing the dinghy to the next anchorage. And because it's half swamped in rainwater, it almost drove itself under, and we were only going like 3 knots.
We just attempted to anchor at this island where Castaway was filmed. Looks very beautiful, but we could not find a good spot to anchor. The depths were really deep and visibility is really poor today with the overcast sky, so we are not going to stay here tonight and we'll try for another anchorage.
Well, we struck out on a good anchorage at the last island, so we are attempting a new one here, and it has a pretty sketchy narrow pass into the protected lagoon, so we'll see how it goes.
So we've only been 1 night here at Mana Island, but we're going to move on. We're heading towards the mainland, on the main island of Fiji, to start doing our preparations to check out of Fiji. The seasons are changing, and we're starting to think about getting out of here before hurricane season. So we haven't been lingering any of these last couple of places, but we're going to spend about a week maybe watching the weather window and getting the boat prepared, getting all the food and everything we need, and then we're going to push on. We're thinking we might go to New Caledonia or maybe Vanuatu. with an eye towards eventually reaching Australia for the hurricane season. So got to keep making miles today, even though there is no wind and it is extremely hot. We've put up the sunshade. We're going to start the motor and try and make it to Denaru, which is a port of entry for Fiji, where we can do our checkout procedures. This morning we woke up and it was so hot, and so we came out and immediately jumped in the water, and we realized that it might actually be our last swim in this perfect turquoise, warm, beautiful water of Fiji, because we're going to go to a kind of a congested marina basin, and I don't know if swimming there is going to be very good. We don't know, we haven't been there yet, so maybe it'll be okay, but the water here is absolutely gorgeous in this lagoon, and so we had one last wonderful swim this morning before we head back to the big city. So I noticed some diesel leaking off the engine at the top of the injector return line, and I take it off, and this is the sealing washer. I don't know if you can see, but it's corroded completely through on one side, and this is the second washer on the banjo fitting, and it's not all the way through, but it's getting there. Luckily we have spares, but it was dumping a bunch of diesel. The whole marina basin was full at Denaru, so we anchored outside the harbor in the open roadstead. It was about a mile into the harbor, so we used the sailing rig to commute in each day. Got our laundry sopping wet. How you doing, Whit?
It's a little wet, it's a little cold. Cold for Fiji.
You look hilarious.
Absolutely soaked.
Just taking our freshly dried laundry back to the boat. We had perfect freshwater showers. We were feeling so good.
And now we were soaked, absolutely soaked. We saw this storm rolling in, and yeah, there was no escaping it.
We waited, but now it's going to be dark, so we decided we better get going, rain or no rain.
Yeah.
We have to row like a mile back to the boat.
The wind clocked around at our last anchorage, and the waves were really picking up, so we decided to pull anchor and escape for a more protected anchorage.
So we're preparing to do the crossing to New Caledonia, and one of the problems we have is our mizzen boom has, it used to be a roller furling boom, and when I rebuilt it, I riveted the rolling mechanism because it was completely irritating. I hate roller reefing. Whenever the sail would be lowered, the boom would fall over and dump it in the cockpit, which it now is doing again. We had some quite rough weather coming over to Fiji, and I was furling the sail and leaning really hard against it, and we hit a wave, and my full weight went into the boom, and it torqued it hard enough that it sheared off the rivet that I put in. So we've unbent the mizzen sail, and I'm going to remove the boom here, take apart this mechanism, and see if I can figure out a way to refasten that swivel without going to shore for parts. When I secured this, I put 3 rivets, 3 copper rivets, and pinned them over. But I think I've got plenty of metal here to work with, so I could counterbore and put, basically replace them with stainless steel. Put some machine screws in there that I have on board, stainless ones. Got 3 new stainless pins. Should be many times stronger than it was. Made them from machine screws. We waited for a perfectly calm day to take the boat into the crowded basin to visit the fuel dock. 10 inches, so we're about 3 gallons short. That's alright, because it's the most expensive fuel we've ever bought. So we'll leave it 3 gallons short. With boat projects done and our tanks full of fuel and water, we just needed some more groceries and we would be ready to head back out to sea. We are gonna miss Fijian markets. The produce is such high quality, locally grown, and very reasonably priced. Bright colors and friendly people make the markets a microcosm of Fiji as a whole in our memories. Well, we just cleared out of Fiji, just went through customs and immigration, and that's it. So we're on our way.
And we're off.
Our next destination, New Caledonia, lay about 700 nautical miles to the southwest. It was to be a squally passage over some unsettled waters, with a few frightening moments to add spice to the otherwise tranquil beauty of the open ocean.